So I was in my cousin's wedding, and I heard someone mention that there was a producer in the room from NBC Chicago. So what did I do? I'm in my bridesmaid's dress. I get down from the table. I go find her. She happened to be a Black woman, and she was on the dance floor. And I kind of slid in, and I was so smooth with it. And I introduced myself really quick. And I was like, "Can we talk in the hall?" And she was like, "Yeah, yeah, no problem."
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Black Student Success Podcast, where we bring you insight and guidance from successful Black professionals. My name is InQuire, and of course, we appreciate the support. So today's guest is a journalist for over 10 years. She has credits worth working with NBC, Fox News, as well as Ebony Magazine. So she's going to talk about her experience, how she's gotten to the point where she's at in her career, and everything that she's learned along the way. So let's welcome Andrea Watson. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So we're going to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself by answering who is Andrea Watson.
Yeah, sure. In a nutshell, I'm a daughter. I'm a soon-to-be mother. I'm a sister. I'm a Black woman. Can't leave that out. And I'm a storyteller. I've been, as you mentioned, I've been doing journalism professionally for over 10 years, and it's a part of me, and I love it so much.
Perfect. Well, congratulations on the little one coming up.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So let's take it back to all the way, before you actually got into school, maybe even before you even thought about getting into media. What was your childhood like, and what was that like leading up to the point where you went to school?
Definitely. Well, as a little girl, I was very, very reserved. Some may even say shy. I love to read. I would hit the max for books that you can check out at the library. So I've always surrounded myself with words. I started kind of dabbling in poetry when I was about 10, 11, and I've always just loved writing and reading. So I had my friends, but I wasn't that really active social little girl. I was more just kind of quiet, like to be around the adults and just kind of read and write stuff. So I've always kind of been creative. And that was me. And then when I got to high school, joined the student paper, and my high school was really focused on thinking of your career by the time you were a sophomore. So at 15, we had to take a early career placement test, and it was between a couple of things, like I think fashion, medical profession, and then journalism. And at that point, I didn't really know what a journalist was, like exactly. I just knew like my mom would watch TV and I would see the anchors on there. But I'm like, that looks kind of easy and they get to tell stories. So when I took the test and the results came back, they were like, you could do a career in journalism or communications. And then from there, I just like zeroed in and just kept focused on journalism. So
Yeah. So it was really that class or that step in preparation that kind of introduced you to it. And then that led you to getting into the paper and then obviously much more after that.
Yeah, I think I just always thought about what came natural for me and having people feel comfortable around me. Like I said, reading and writing early on, I'm like, wait, I can do all those things I love doing and get money doing it. So once I realized that was the actual career, then I started pursuing that.
Perfect. Okay, so then let's jump into when you actually went to school. What was that college experience like for both your undergrad and your graduate studies? And then what kind of support did you get while you were in school?
Sure. I did not have the, I guess, typical college experience. But for me, so I actually transferred in as an undergrad. I did community college first, but again, that focus was always on journalism. So even though I knew I was still at a 2-year school, I still participated in the paper there. I still took journalism and writing classes there, and those credits transferred over. And I commuted, so I didn't stay on campus at first. So for me, it was just always focused on getting ahead, thinking of after graduation, what does that look like professionally? And I was staying with internships. Like I just kept trying to get internships. Same with grad school. By then I was a little bit more experienced because I had been freelancing and interning at a black paper in Chicago, the Chicago Defender. And when I got to grad school, I wanted to learn more digital skills. So I'm like, okay, let me get into this master's program so I can kind of sharpen my skills and really prepare myself for the world out there. But while I was actually in school, um, to answer your question, the support part was big for me. I took advantage of all the free events. So if there was any kind of workshop on how to network, how to perfect your elevator pitch, I don't care how tired I was, how many classes I had to study for, like I made sure I was there. In undergrad, we had support programs for African American students. I took advantage of those. I went to pretty much all their panels and workshops and any type of thing that was free assistance to help you develop professionally. I'm like, I don't know when I'll get this again in life, so let me take advantage of it. So I was big on, I'll see a flyer, oh, sign me up, I'm down. So I tell students all the time, like, take advantage of that professional development because it's a little harder or it costs once you're out of school. But while you're a student, do it because it definitely helped me. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the adults in my life in college who really helped kind of shaped me into the journalist I am today.
Nice, nice. And there's two good things that I like that you pointed out. So one was you being active within community college, because I feel like community college gets a lot of flack when it comes to, oh, you're just there to get your gen ed courses and, there's not much beyond that. But it sounds like you still got involved. You still kept that focus with journalism and writing and everything to, still kind of keep that momentum going into, a 4-year school. And just the importance of getting out there and getting involved and taking advantage of all those resources that you have as a student. Because like you said, yeah, you got to start paying money to get those same types of things. And then even, with, being able to utilize them because they're free, you have all of the different staff members and faculty members to kind of support you along the way and point you in the right direction so you don't feel like you're going in there blindly.
Definitely. And just to piggyback on that, I do think that there's sometimes, well, not maybe as much now compared to when I was still in college like 10 years ago, but I think there's a stigma around going to community college. And I do see that it's improved now and it's something that people do push more, but at the time it wasn't a decision that I wanted to do personally. Just financially, it made the most sense. And although starting out that first semester, I was discouraged because, you grow up thinking I'm going to go away to school. I'm going to, have this amazing college experience like everybody else or what you see on TV, which is not always the case. And when I got there, I had to figure out a way to make this work for me. So even though they had less resources, because I actually went to two, but depending on where I was, I made it work. I found those professors who had experience working at TV stations and papers, and maybe they didn't have a journalism program, but they had electives and they were experienced. So they saw that I was interested. So I just want to encourage students that if that is the route that you have to take, no matter what profession you're going into, there are still faculty members at those community colleges who can still help you apply for internships, fellowship, and you may have a different situation. You may be an older student, or you may have children, or you may not be living on campus because you're commuting, but you can still make it work for you. And that's what I did.
Perfect. Thank you for providing all that great advice. Now, you did talk about getting into internships, really just trying to push to get as many as you could during both undergrad and grad. What other types of things did you do to kind of prepare yourself to get into news and media?
Yeah. Wow. The beginning was definitely a struggle. And I try to tell people, I'm like, getting your foot in that door the first time, like going from I'm just a student and now I really want to get this internship, that is the hardest part. But for me, I was aggressive. So for example, I have a funny story. There was an internship. Well, actually, it wasn't even available at this point. But because I knew how to network from those professional development classes I went to, I realized that networking doesn't always take place in a structured environment with a title, such and such networking event. You network wherever you go, right? So I was in my cousin's wedding and I heard someone mention that there was a producer in the room from NBC Chicago. So what did I do? I'm in my bridesmaid's dress. I get down from the table. I go find her. She happened to be a Black woman, and she was on the dance floor. And I kind of slid in, and I was so smooth with it. And I introduced myself really quick. And I was like, "Can we talk in the hall?" And she was like, "Yeah, yeah, no problem." So we go to the hallway, and I always had business cards on me. Even before I started interning, I had business cards. That was something I also learned in school. So I networked with her, and I think this was maybe like, we'll say like August, like sometime late August. She was like, "Well, I'm already booked for fall, but I'm looking for spring interns already, and I like to get my interns early. So why don't you reach out to me on Monday morning?" Yes, ma'am. I did that. I stayed persistent. So it's like I tell students, you can send the emails, you can send your work samples, portfolio, all of that stuff. But sometimes you just have to get in people's faces if there's an opportunity for that. So I got creative, and some may think that it's extreme or it's stalking or whatever. But if there's a way to still do it where you don't come off like too rude, too aggressive, and you kind of go with the flow a little bit, it worked. So I did that a few times in my career, and that's how I got internships, because I was able to put my face in front of people, and I already kind of knew their background. So that was something that kind of helped the conversation flow naturally. Because sometimes, like, that's the hiring person, but you don't know what to say to them. So then you're just standing there awkwardly, and they're like, you're not going to be remembered. So I tell people, you're a person first. So just think about how you interact with people naturally, and kind of shake off that fear that this is somebody who's higher than me right now, career wise, and just talk to them. Just be yourself. Let your personality show. So I did that a lot, and that's how I got a lot of internships. And then once you have a few on your resume, as I'm sure you know, then doors start to open. But getting your foot in the door, you definitely have to like really step out there and step out of your comfort zone. For me, for someone who was always really quiet and reserved, that was hard, but I had to like push myself literally to just snap out of it. What's there to be afraid of, Andrea? Go after it. You want this. And so far it's been working.
Nice, nice. Well, thank goodness for that wedding, right?
Right?
That's awesome. The courage piece I think is really good to have. I think once you've gotten over that fear of rejection, which can be in any industry that you work in, and I can understand that it may be a little bit more competitive in the world that you work in, that you took advantage of that point, and and you stay persistent. You made sure that you were showing that how reliable you would be, and again that led to that internship. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, and like I said, that persistency portion of that as well, just really making sure that you're on top of that potential opportunity until you actually get that no. And it sounds like you really did that, so that's really good. Great story to put to that. Now when it comes to the skills that you kind of develop, because you had the opportunity to work in both in front of the camera as well as doing writing pieces as well. Now maybe in the context of your career and what you've done so far, what would you, or did you put any emphasis on your writing skills? Did you put them on your speaking skills as you were kind of developing, or did you try to do a mix of both to really get to the point where you wanted to get?
Sure. So starting out, my focus was solely on writing. So I would read different news outlets work, whether it was something local or national, just to kind of get a feel for how more veteran journalists would write. That was a tip that a professor gave me. So in the beginning, it was writing, but as the world continues to change, evolve, things became a lot more web focused, digital focused. And I realized, so this is still when I was an undergrad. So I realized that, okay, I need to learn more digital skills. I need to understand Google Analytics, SEO, like all of that stuff, how to shoot nonlinear editing. So that's why I went to grad school to learn. And even still, there's new things coming out. So I try to stay up to date as much as possible. But to answer your question, when I was probably like year 3, 4 in my career, I kind of got pushed to do more radio interviews and television interviews. And I had never been a public speaker. So at the time, it was like, wait, what? I have to talk and this is live? Like, no, can somebody else do it? Well, it's your story, Andrea. You need to go talk about it. So I just kind of got pushed into that, and people were like, "You're really good at it." So I wouldn't say I started off focusing on speaking, but the two kind of go hand in hand. And now a lot of journalists today, even if you are in quote unquote print or digital, you're still going to find yourself in spaces where somebody's camera's in front of you or mic's in front of you and you're talking. And it always feels weird being on the other side.
Yeah, and I'm sure that it's helpful when the viewers or the people who are consuming it can put a face to the article that they read, and then even more so maybe a personality, which I think makes you a little bit more relatable and then eventually more well-rounded. And you've definitely gotten to that point with all the different experiences that you had. Now, when you got to that point and you're like, oh, okay, I am actually good at this. I can get into a comfort zone with that. What was that like, knowing that you were this, shy, reserved person, as you were growing up, and now you're getting in front of the camera and now you're comfortable in front of the camera. What was that experience like?
Yeah. So the first time, so when I was at DNA Info in Chicago, they had me make a guest appearance on Fox just to talk about a story. And it was supposed to be like a one-time thing. And then the producers, like, they loved me. So my manager was able to work out something. So I was a weekly guest in their morning segment. And the first couple times, I'll be honest, I was terrified. Like, I was proud of the work I produced, but to actually sit out or outside sometimes in the plaza or behind the anchor desk and talk about my work, I felt completely out of my comfort zone. But once I started getting more comfortable with it, it felt good because although I shy away from the spotlight, like I do prefer to be behind the scenes of my writing, but to know that, hey, like I'm not messing up like I thought, like this is something I can do if I'm asked to do it and I'm getting better at it. Cause I would critique myself. I would watch the videos from like the first month of me on air to now like month 4. And I'm like, oh, like my on camera presence is better. I'm making more jokes. And it just felt good because sometimes I think sometimes we as individuals, one, we're our biggest critic and we can put ourselves in boxes and not even try to step out and do something else because this is all we know because it's familiar and comfortable. So when I really started to feel more confident walking in the studio, not having to focus so much on my notes and I can just kind of talk, it was very good. It was a good feeling.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm glad that you got to that point, and now I'm sure that's opened up more opportunities for you. So thank you for explaining that. Now, one of the articles that I've actually read, I believe it was an interview that you did, where you talked about how you want to make sure, that Black people, especially, if you're doing any type of reporting on the south side of Chicago, that you still find ways to find positive images or positive aspects of the stories that you report there. Now, as a Black woman, being from Chicago and getting in this news and media area, how do you find the balance between remaining objective in the work that you do while still being able to dispel stereotypes through your reporting?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one-on-one as a journalist. Like, you have to be objective. What I found, and maybe I'm just fortunate, in every newsroom I've worked in so far, I've had support where they actually want those positive stories of people of color. So I've never been in a situation where it's kind of like I'm advocating for us. It's more so like, hey, I think we should do this, or hey, this might be something our newsroom should look at. Okay, Andrea, go ahead. So that hasn't been an issue. I know some people have experienced backlash, but for me personally, I've always gotten that support with those kind of stories because, as we know, there aren't enough positive stories of Black and Brown people. They're out there, of course. There's a lot of amazing journalists doing it, whether they're in print or on air or whatever. But when you look at communities like the South Side of Chicago, um, you see crime every day, no matter what paper you open, no matter what TV channel you turn to. It was another shooting. It was multiple shootings. This many shootings over the weekend. We all seen the headlines. So for me, when I really got into my career, which did start on the South Side of Chicago, I wanted to really dig into those communities. And I'm like, well, we're not acknowledging that this is happening. We know this is an issue here, but the people who live here, they know that too. But what about the positive stuff that's happening? The new small Black-owned business that just opened up. What's that woman's story behind that business? What's her inspiration? What's her motivation? What about that student who's the first in their family to go to college and they're going to Harvard? Like who's covering those stories? So I made it a mission to do that. And no matter what community, no matter what city I'm in, I always try to find those underserved areas and find a positive story. So that's something that I will continue to do. And I don't plan on stopping.
Good, good. And I think it's a great point to make that you were able to get that support from your employer, because that might not always be there. And that could be something that some of our listeners could even consider when they're, looking for that work, just making sure that they're putting themselves in a position where they won't feel like they have to really push for that advocacy, that the employer does align with some of the things in their own moral compass.
Yeah, and just to add, I think, and I don't know if this is something that I was taught or if I just kind of figured out as I became more experienced and got more jobs, but when you're interviewing with an employer, that's something you really need to look at. Not, oh, this is a prestigious company or I'm going to make this much money. Like, yes, those things are great, but are you and the employer, are you on the same page? Do you share their mission, their goals? Because you don't want to end up in a space where you're constantly, getting pushed back into the corner. And it's always like this conflict because you want to do this. And not to say that that won't happen at times, but I think for me as a journalist, if I was ever to get another job somewhere else and the employer were like, yeah, we don't need coverage over there, let's focus on this, that would be a turnoff for me because I know personally, again, I'm Black first, then I'm a woman, then I'm a journalist. And I want to tell those stories. So if you're not on the same page as me, this is not going to work. So I think that's something for students to keep in mind as they begin their job, interviewing experiences. Just, are you and this employer one on the same page? Because if you guys don't see eye to eye now, what do you think it's going to be like if you start working there?
Yeah, it's always a two-way street. It's always a two-way street. So, all right. So now, before we do, wrap up now, if you were to go back and give advice to your childhood self, what would you say to yourself?
Ooh, that's a good one. If I could tell my childhood self anything, I would have to say that I would tell myself to worry less. And I know it's easier said than done, but don't always compare my journey to other people's journey. I think I did that a lot in the beginning. And I think a part of that came because I started at community college. So in a way, I felt like I was behind and I should have had more opportunities sooner, but because I was here, not there. So I would just tell myself, like, at the end, Andrea, it's going to work out. It may seem like you're lagging behind the people you see on social media, but everybody has their own pace, their own journey. And in the end, a lot of us end up in the same place. It's just a matter that we have different paths. So I think I would just reassure myself that it's going to be okay. Because I definitely didn't think my career would have taken off the way it did, because it just seemed like it was never going to happen.
Perfect. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners are going to learn from your path. And, even if they're not taking the same one, they can say, okay, the way that Andrea did it, I can still, achieve these goals. So thank you for sharing that. Now, before we do close out everything, I do have a few fun questions for you. Now, with you being in the space of, the growing space of the internet, I'm sure you've been exposed to many memes across your career. What would you say are your top 3 favorites?
Oh, I don't know if I have 3.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's 2.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know. So the one with the SpongeBob.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna head out. I don't know why that one. It didn't get old because some memes you laugh at it for like a day and then it's like, okay, I'm tired of this. That one is still funny to me, like to the point that I'll even say that now in like real conversations. All right, I'm gonna head out. Like, definitely the SpongeBob one, and the one with the Chicago mayor. When she was telling everyone to stay at home, I think those are hilarious. Like, she just like always watching everywhere. So
yeah, those are really good ones. Now, when this pandemic ends, whenever that's going to be, what's going to be the first thing that you do that you haven't been able to do in this last year?
Yeah, I miss just brunching with my girls. I know you can still do that in some places, but I just like when this is really over, I just want to get like 5 of us and just go on a nice rooftop and have some mimosas and good food. Like I just miss that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, if you were to take the food, the weather, and attractions from three different places just to create your own vacation spot, what places and things would you choose from?
Well, definitely Chicago food because we have a little bit of everything that you want. So I would have to have that no matter where I'm at. Um, I would love some weather from Atlanta.
Mm.
It's so nice. Their winter is still nice. And maybe Vegas attractions just because they have so many like live performances. People think it's just parties, but they like their theater space out there is amazing. So much live entertainment. So I would love that.
That's what's up. All right, now if you're at the cookout, what are you most likely doing? You know, you got people who are cooking, got people who are eating, dancing, talking to everybody. What's Andrea doing?
Andrea is usually sitting somewhere in the shade, off from everyone on her phone or talking to a friend with a plate. And I have bad allergies, so I wouldn't be out there long, like grass and all that. It makes me itch. But I would be kind of social. I'll make my rounds, but I would never stay more than 2 hours.
Yeah, that's when you're like, all right, I'm gonna head out.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect, perfect. All right, now lastly, with you being from Chicago and having all these experiences here, if someone were to come to visit, what's the one thing that they need to experience before they leave?
Well, one, I would hope they would come when it's actually summertime and not cold because the experience is drastically different. Um, I realize that a lot of people don't know that Chicago has beaches. Like we always say, oh, you got to try the food, you got to get this pizza, and like yes to all of that. But I think they already know that when they come here. But I think people should go to the beaches, go and just experience that because, I mean, although it's not like an amazing big beach of ocean, but like Chicago, like we have our own style with it, and I think it's still nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially when they get super crowded. You know, as soon as that first warm day breaks, everybody's out
Yes,
because we're dealing with this cold and everything. We're like, no, we gotta get out.
wait.
Exactly. All right. Well, Andrea, that's all I have for you. Did you have any last words before we do close out here?
Yeah, for students, just continue to stay encouraged. Remember to not compare yourself to other people. And as long as you have a plan, you're focused, and you find that support system, like you're going to be fine.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you for your time. And thanks to everybody who's been listening. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also follow us on social media. That's at InQuire Hire. And then visit our website, inquirehire.com. So until next time, peace.